My love, I don't know if this is the last time my words will ever reach you. And maybe you've already decided to walk away. But before you block me, before you close this chapter like it never meant anything, just give me a moment. One honest moment. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to prove anything. I'm just here as someone who still feels you in every quiet second. Because the truth is, in a world where everything feels temporary, what I felt for you was the only thing that ever felt real. So please, before you silence me forever, just listen to this once, not with your anger, not with your pain, but with the heart that once chose me. My love, before you block me, before you decide that I'm no longer worth a second of your time, just listen to this once. Not because I deserve it, maybe I don't, but because what we had deserves at least one honest moment, one moment where everything is real again, even if it hurts. I know you're tired. I know you've been carrying things I didn't see, things I didn't understand, things I should have noticed without you having to say a word. And maybe that's where I lost you, not in one big mistake, but in 1,000 small silences where I should have reached for you and didn't. But believe me when I say this, you were never something ordinary to me. You were never just someone in my life. You were the calm in my chaos, the voice I waited for, the feeling that made everything else fade into the background. Even on the days when I didn't say it right, or didn't say it at all, you were there in every thought I couldn't explain. And I know right now none of that matters to you. Because what matters is how I made you feel. The moments you felt ignored, the nights you felt alone even when I was still there, the times you questioned your place in my life. I see that now, maybe too late, but I see it. And it hurts not because I'm losing you, but because I became the reason you started pulling away. You didn't deserve confusion. You didn't deserve mixed signals or quiet distance. You deserved certainty, warmth, presence. You deserved someone who made you feel chosen every single day without you having to ask for it. And I hate that I made you feel like you had to ask. But please understand something, my silence was never emptiness. It wasn't a lack of love. It was fear of not being enough, fear of saying the wrong thing. Fear of losing you so deeply that I didn't even know how to hold on properly. And somehow in trying not to lose you, I pushed you further away. You see, loving you wasn't easy, not because you were difficult, but because you mattered so much that every little thing felt bigger, heavier, more important. You became someone I didn't want to mess up with, and in that pressure, I forgot the simplest truth, that love isn't about perfection, it's about showing up. And I didn't always show up the way you needed me to. Still, every memory with you is alive in me. The way you spoke, the way you laughed when something was genuinely funny, the way your voice softened when you were being real, I carry all of it. Not like something I can replace, but like something that became a part of me. And I know, right now you're probably thinking that words don't change anything. Maybe they don't, maybe this won't change your decision. But this isn't about changing your mind. It's about telling you the truth I should have told you earlier, when it could have made a difference. The truth is I never stopped choosing you. Even when I was quiet, even when I seemed distant, even when I didn't respond the way you hoped, somewhere in me, you were always the one I was holding on to. Not out of habit, but because you meant something real, something rare. You were never replaceable, not your presence, not your energy, not the way you understood things without needing explanations. You saw parts of me I didn't even show the world, and instead of walking away from them, you stayed. You tried, you gave effort even when I made it difficult. And I see that now. I see your effort, your patience, your love. I see the times you stayed quiet just to keep the peace, the times you forgave me without hearing a proper apology, the times you gave me another chance when I didn't fully deserve it. You didn't leave because you stopped loving me. You left because you got tired of feeling like you were the only one holding everything together. And that's what breaks me the most. Because if I had just slowed down, if I had just listened more, if I had just understood that love isn't about assuming someone will stay no matter what, maybe we wouldn't be here. I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking you to forget everything that hurt you. I'm not even asking you to forgive me right now. All I'm asking is, don't let the ending erase what was real between us. Because it was real. Every moment, every feeling, every late-night conversation, every silence that still felt full, it was real. And if this is truly the last time you hear me, then I want you to know that you changed me. In ways I didn't even realize while you were still here. You taught me how deep love can go, how much it can heal, and how much it can hurt when it's not handled with care. You made me realize that love isn't something you hold casually. It's something you protect, something you nurture, something you fight for even in the smallest moments. And I didn't fight enough, not in the way you needed, not in the way you deserved. But please don't think for a second that you were ever too much, or too emotional, or too demanding. You were just asking for love in a way that was honest. And I should have met you there instead of pulling back. You deserved reassurance without asking. You deserved attention without competing for it. You deserved someone who made you feel safe, not someone who made you question things. And I hate that I became that person for you. Still, if there's even the smallest part of you that remembers what we had, not the pain, not the confusion, but the real connection underneath all of it, then just hold on to that for a second. Because that version of us, it existed, it was real, and it meant something. I don't know what happens after this. Maybe you block me, maybe you move on completely. Maybe I become just a memory you don't revisit anymore. But before that happens, I just needed you to hear this from me, not perfectly, not dramatically, just honestly. You matter to me, you still do, in a quiet, deep way that doesn't disappear just because things ended. And even if I don't get another chance to show it, even if this is where everything truly ends, I needed you to know that my feelings were never fake. Never temporary. Never something I took lightly. I just wish I had loved you in a way that made you stay instead of making you question everything. My love, if this is the moment where everything finally goes silent between us, then there are still things I need to say, not to hold you back, not to make you feel guilty, but because some truths deserve to be spoken, even if they arrive too late. I've been thinking about us, not just the good parts, but everything. The little cracks that slowly turned into distance, the words we didn't say. The moments we let pass like they didn't matter, when they actually meant everything. It's strange how love doesn't disappear all at once. It fades in quiet ways. In pauses, in misunderstandings. In the space between I'm okay and I'm not. And I see it now, how we both stood on opposite sides of the same feeling. Trying to reach each other but not knowing how. You were asking for closeness, and I was lost in my own thoughts, thinking there was still time. I thought love could wait, that you would understand without me explaining, that you would stay without me reminding you why. But love doesn't work like that. It needs presence, it needs effort. It needs to be felt, not just assumed. I remember the way you used to look at me, like there was something safe here. Something certain, and slowly that look changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just enough for me to feel it and ignore it at the same time. I told myself it was nothing, that things were just different for a while. But deep down, I knew I was losing something I didn't know how to hold properly. You started becoming quieter, not because you had nothing to say, but because you felt unheard. And instead of noticing, instead of asking you what was wrong and actually listening, I let that silence grow. I let it become normal. And that's something I'll carry with me, not as regret alone, but as a lesson I wish I had learned sooner. Because you weren't asking for too much. You were asking for the basics: attention, honesty, consistency, things that should never feel like a burden in love. And I made them feel heavy, not by refusing them outright, but by not giving them when it mattered most. Still, I want you to know that even in those moments where I seemed distant, I was never disconnected from you. You were always there somewhere in my mind. In the way I noticed things and wished I could tell you. In the way certain songs felt incomplete without your voice sharing them with me. In the way I looked for you without realizing I was doing it. But thinking about someone isn't the same as showing up for them. Feeling something isn't the same as expressing it. And that's where I failed you, not in love itself, but in how I carried it. You gave me something rare, a kind of love that doesn't come around often. It was patient, real, and honest, even when it was hurting. You didn't pretend. You didn't hide your emotions just to make things easier. You showed me exactly who you were, and instead of matching that courage, I held parts of myself back. Maybe I was afraid that if I gave everything, I'd have nothing left if things fell apart. But what I didn't understand was this: holding back didn't protect us, it slowly broke us. And now here we are at a point where everything feels like it's already decided. Where your silence says more than words ever could. Where I can feel the distance in a way that no explanation can fix. I won't ask you to undo that. I won't ask you to ignore what you felt or to pretend that things didn't hurt. Because they did, and you had every right to feel that way. But before you close this completely, I want you to remember something real about us. Not the ending, not the confusion, but the moments where everything felt simple. Where being together didn't require effort. Where conversations flowed without hesitation. Where even silence felt comfortable instead of heavy. Those moments weren't an illusion. They weren't temporary failings that disappeared without meaning. They were real, and they came from something genuine between us. And maybe, just maybe, if things had been different, if I had been more aware, more present, more honest with how I felt, we wouldn't be standing here now. On the edge of something that once felt unbreakable. But life doesn't move backward. It doesn't give us the chance to redo moments the way we wish we could. All it leaves us with is understanding, and sometimes that understanding comes when the moment has already passed. I understand you now, not perfectly, but more than I did before. I understand why you pulled away, why you stopped trying, why your energy changed. It wasn't because you didn't care, it was because you cared too much for too long without feeling the same in return. And that kind of exhaustion, it doesn't go away easily. It builds quietly until one day you just don't have anything left to give. If you've reached that point, then I won't stand in your way. I won't try to convince you that things can go back to how they were. Because even if they could, they wouldn't feel the same unless something truly changed. And maybe that change is happening too late, or maybe it's happening at the exact moment it needed to. Even if it doesn't bring you back. Either way, I just want you to leave with clarity, not confusion. With truth, not doubt. You were loved, not perfectly, not always in the way you needed, but genuinely. Deeply, in a way that left a mark on me that won't fade just because you're no longer here. And I hope wherever you go from here, whoever becomes part of your life, they see you the way I should have seen you more clearly. I hope they meet your effort with the same energy. I hope they don't make you question your worth or your place. Because you deserve a love that feels certain, a love that doesn't leave you guessing, a love that shows up. Every day without hesitation. And maybe one day I'll become that kind of person too. Not for you, not to fix what's already broken, but because knowing you showed me what that kind of love looks like. So if this is goodbye, then let it be a real one. Not filled with anger, not buried under things we never said, but something quiet, something honest. A moment where two people who once meant everything to each other finally understand what went wrong. Even if they can't fix it anymore. And if you do block me after this, I'll understand. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because sometimes distance is the only way people find peace. Just know there was nothing ordinary about you, nothing forgettable, nothing easy to replace. And there was nothing casual about the way I felt for you, even if I didn't always show it the way you needed. My love, if somehow these words reach you after everything has already been said and undone, then maybe this isn't about changing anything anymore. Maybe this is just about truth, the kind that doesn't try to fix the past but refuses to leave it misunderstood. Because what we had, it wasn't simple, not in the way people describe love when they only talk about the easy parts. Ours had depth, it had moments that felt like home, and moments that felt like distance, sometimes at the same time. And I think that's what made it real, but also what made it fragile. I keep replaying the small things, not the obvious arguments or the clear mistakes, but the subtle shifts. The way your tone changed when you felt unheard. The way you paused before replying, as if you were choosing your words more carefully than before. The way your energy slowly stopped reaching for me the way it used to. And I noticed I just didn't act on it the way I should have. There's a difference between seeing something and understanding it. I saw you drifting, but I told myself it would pass. I told myself that love like ours couldn't just fade, that it was strong enough to survive a little distance. A little silence, a little confusion. But I was wrong about one thing: even the strongest feelings need care. They need attention, they need to be protected in the smallest ways, not just the big ones. And I didn't protect what we had the way I should have. Not because I didn't value it, but because I got comfortable in it. I started believing that you would always be there, that no matter how quiet I became, how distracted I got, how distant I seemed, you would understand and stay. I didn't realize that every time I assumed that, I was slowly asking you to carry more than your share of the weight. You were patient in ways I didn't fully appreciate at the time. You gave chances without announcing them. You forgave things I didn't even recognize as mistakes. You stayed in moments where leaving would have been easier. And I think that's what hurts the most now, knowing that you didn't leave at the first sign of difficulty. You stayed until staying started to cost you your peace. That's not weakness, that's love in its most honest form. And I didn't honor it the way it deserved. I remember how you used to open up to me, not just about the good things, but about your fears, your overthinking, the things that made you feel uncertain. You trusted me with parts of yourself that weren't easy to share, and instead of always meeting you with the same openness, I sometimes pulled back. Not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to respond in the way you needed. I thought being there physically, or just being present in the conversation, was enough. I didn't understand that you needed emotional presence too, that you needed to feel seen, not just heard. And slowly you stopped showing those parts of yourself to me. Not all at once, just little by little, a detail you didn't mention. A feeling you kept to yourself, a thought you decided wasn't worth sharing anymore. And instead of asking why, instead of noticing that something important was changing, I let it happen. That silence, it wasn't empty, it was full of things we didn't say. Full of emotions that didn't find their way into words. Full of distance that grew without either of us fully acknowledging it. And by the time I realized how far we had drifted, it already felt like we were speaking different languages. You were tired not just of the situation, but of trying. Tired of repeating yourself, tired of hoping things would change. Tired of feeling like you were asking for something that should have come naturally. And I understand that now in a way I wish I had understood earlier. Because love shouldn't feel like a constant effort to be noticed. It shouldn't feel like you have to remind someone of your place in their life. It shouldn't leave you questioning whether you matter. You mattered, you always did. But I didn't show it in a way that made you feel secure in that truth. And that's something I have to take responsibility for, not in a way that blames myself endlessly, but in a way that recognizes what I need to learn, what I need to change, what I need to carry forward. Because losing you, it's not just about losing a person. It's about losing a connection that had the potential to become something even deeper, something lasting, something rare. And maybe that potential wasn't enough. Maybe potential doesn't mean anything if it's not matched with action, with consistency, with effort that doesn't fade when things become complicated. I think about the version of me you believed in, the one you saw when things were good. When everything felt aligned, when our connection felt effortless. That version of me existed, it wasn't something you imagined. But I didn't stay consistent with it, I didn't grow into it the way I should have. I let distractions, fears, and habits pull me away from being the person you needed me to be. And in doing that, I slowly became someone who made you feel uncertain instead of safe. That shift, it didn't happen overnight. It happened in the smallest ways, in missed opportunities to show up. In moments where I chose comfort over effort. In times where I stayed silent instead of speaking honestly. And now, looking back, I can see how each of those moments added up. Not as individual mistakes, but as a pattern that slowly changed the way you experienced our love. You didn't stop loving me suddenly. You didn't wake up one day and decide it was over. You reached a point where loving me started to hurt more than it felt right. And when love reaches that point, walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. I respect that, even if it's hard to accept. Because you deserve peace, you deserve clarity. You deserve a love that doesn't make you feel like you're losing yourself in the process. And maybe I wasn't able to give you that in the way you needed. That doesn't erase what we had, but it explains why it couldn't continue the way it was. Still, I want you to know that what you gave me didn't go unnoticed, even if I didn't always acknowledge it properly. You taught me how to listen beyond words, how to recognize the difference between someone being quiet and someone feeling unheard, how to understand that love isn't just about what you feel, but about what you express. You showed me that consistency matters more than intensity, that small, steady efforts mean more than occasional grand gestures, that being emotionally available isn't optional in something real. And those lessons, they're not something I'll forget. They're something I'll carry, not as reminders of what I lost, but as guidance for who I need to become. Because if love ever finds me again, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. I don't want to take something real and let it slowly slip away because I assumed it would always be there. I want to be present fully, not just in the easy moments, but in the complicated ones too. I want to be someone who notices, who responds, who doesn't let silence replace communication. And maybe learning all of this had to come through losing you. Not because you were meant to leave, but because I wasn't ready in the way I needed to be when you were here. That doesn't make it easier, but it makes it clearer. And clarity, even when it hurts, is better than confusion that lingers without answers. So if this is where everything truly ends, then I hope it ends with understanding. Not perfect understanding, not something that erases the pain, but something that allows both of us to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight. You weren't wrong for wanting more, and I wasn't wrong for feeling deeply. I was just incomplete in how I expressed it. And sometimes that difference is enough to change everything. If you find someone who meets you with the same energy you give, who listens the way you listen, who shows up in the ways you always tried to show up for me, then I hope you don't hold back. I hope you give them everything you once gave me, without fear, without hesitation. Because that version of you, the one who loves fully, honestly, without pretending, that version deserves to be met with the same kind of love. And even if I'm no longer part of your story, a part of me will always be shaped by the time we shared. Not in a way that holds me in the past, but in a way that reminds me of what matters when something is real. And what we had, it mattered more than I showed, more than I said, more than I understood at the time. It mattered in ways that don't just disappear even when everything else does.